my niggas turn shooters. All my ops turn rats. All my niggas turn shooters. On the internet, you ain't been a threat. You been stuck in a computer. Show me the proof. All my niggas turn shooters. All my niggas from the Uda. Welcome to the Uda. All my niggas from the Uda. All my niggas turn shooters. All my ops turn rats. All my niggas turn shooters. On the internet, you ain't been a threat. You been stuck in a computer. Show me the proof. All my niggas turn shooters. All my niggas from the Uda. Welcome to the Uda. All of my niggas insane. They tryna catch a mistake. Young niggas putting in pain. It in the game, all for the game. Niggas ain't playing for nothing. Went in school, laying it bang. My little nigga kill my little nigga. Full-time job. All my niggas from the Uda. All my niggas turn shooters. All my ops turn racks. All my niggas turn shooters. On the internet, you ain't been a threat. You been stuck in a computer.
You already know the vibes. You already know the vibe. Salute to everybody in the building right now. You already know the vibe. Listen, man, Desnique Herndon, SEX trafficking minors in Tyler, Texas, given 7 life sentences. And we're going to break it all down, right? I'm going to be going into some screen sharing. We're going to be breaking it down. Salute to everybody that's in the building. Make sure it is an echo in my space. That's why I got the mic here. Y'all let me know if it's anything. You already know the vibe. You already know I'm Uda. I'm on go. You on go. Welcome to Go, man. Everybody in the chat is the Go gang. Be a part of the Go gang. Make sure you're getting active in the chats and letting us know what you think. All right. Some of you still want me to cover SEX trafficking and RICO cases and different things like that. And there's a couple that I do want to highlight to let you know this one was just settled. You know what I'm saying? It was just got done with. So we are going to go through a little breakdown, maybe some of the closing arguments, because the case is already settled. So let's see what the prosecution in this case now was leading with, and we can lead into what the defense tried to make some defense, but we know that Desnique Herndon ended up getting 7 life sentences. All right. Salute to everybody in the chat. You already know the vibe. You know what I mean? Destiny in the building, Des in the building, Basim in the building, Miss Bennett. You already know. Salute to everybody in the chat. Elizabeth, salute to you too. You already know how we're doing it. All right. So cool. Let's go into a quick blow breakdown. We ain't gonna get into too much talking. Let's just get right into the breakdown. Let's get into this first, right? Cool. Let me share this to y'all. Bang. Yeah, that's cool.
Who has been sentenced to life in federal prison for sex trafficking violations. Now, this is according to the acting U.S. Attorney J.R. Combs. I'm gonna pull up his image here. One moment, make sure this is all good to go. Here we go. His image is on your screen now, but back to the details here. Desnique Herndon, 28 years old, was sentenced to 7 life sentences just earlier today. Back in 2023, Herndon was convicted by a jury of 6 counts of sex trafficking of children and 1 count of conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of children following a 5-day trial. According to information presented in court, starting back in 2019, Herndon engaged in trafficking multiple teenage girls for commercial sex acts. He recruited the girls on social media, lied to them about making money, and placed them in hotels across the Tyler area. He then posted advertisements on websites showing explicit images of the girls. Some of Herndon's victims were as young as 13 years old. During trial, jurors heard testimony that Herndon used co-conspirators to continue to run his operation while he was in jail so that the victims could earn money to pay his bond. 3 of Herndon's co-conspirators previously pleaded guilty for their roles in the offenses. Malcolm Roberts, 29, of Tyler, was sentenced back on November 16th of 2023 to over 12 years in federal prison. Roberts was also sentenced to 75 years in state prison in Smith County District Court for aggravated sexual assault of a child charges in retaliation to one of the victims, or one of the minor victims in this case. Meantime, Tavarius Watkins, 29, of Jacksonville, was also sentenced to 10 years in prison on November 16th of 2023. It was for interstate transport of a minor for illegal sexual activity. And another, Patrick Cross Jr., 28, of Palestine, pleaded guilty on August 22nd of 2022. Now, he is scheduled. Let me pop this down quick.
Trump's continued face-off with the courts has some questioning.
Ooh, we are going to go into a breakdown of this case right here a little bit. right? We are going to go into a quick little breakdown. I do want to see what the prosecution, I was reading the case in the transcripts, and this case was, like they said, they wrapped up in 5 days. One of the youngest victims in this case, they're alleging, was 13 years of age. They was having them in hotels and different things like that. This guy had the girls, you know what I'm saying? But what was crazy about this paperwork, that I never read no thing like that with people dealing with young people. So, you know what I'm saying? We only heard about stuff like that. So I never read a transcript like this, right? Because it said MV1, MV2. I'm like, MV? What do you mean MV? MV what? Right? Minor victim 1, minor victim 2. It's mad MV, like 8 MVs. I'm like, what is this MV thing? Minor victims, bro. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So this little case was a wild case right here. It got a couple of more that I most definitely want to get into as well. And I'm not gonna let no cats out the bag, but I got a lot of great things that's gonna be going down on Go. So let me share this to y'all real quick so we can go into a little breakdown so you can see exactly what the hell I'm talking to you about, right? Okay, 17.551. This is the paperwork, I think. Boom, right? Bang. Let me make sure it's up there, right? Boom. Let's try to maximize this. Hold up. How about when it maximized? No. I know y'all can see it. Y'all see it good? But it's another one that I had here for another setting. I could be here though. This ain't bad, right? Because y'all can see what's going on as I scroll it. I'm gonna mark it right here. Boom, right? I could even tweak it if you want me to tweak it too. Look, boom. I could tweak it. Let me tweak it. Boom, put me right here. Okay. All right, cool. All right, cool, right? We Gucci. All right, so where the paperwork at? Boom. All right, so this is the prosecution going up now. All right, so I didn't fast forward through the transcripts. We got the whole transcripts of this whole case. This case was just settled the other day, if not a couple of days now. You know what I mean? So we're just gonna get into a quick little read. Everybody get the likes up. You already know y'all hit the poll. Y'all get the likes up, and that's it. May it please the court, counsel, he says, I want to start just because y'all have heard so much evidence this week, and this is a complicated charge. We've dropped down to 7 different counts. I want to hit some of the high points and hit the highlights. One of the main things is we have the burden of proof in this case. Now, the burden of proof is not an impossible standard. It is defined here that while the government's burden is strict or high, it is not beyond all doubt, which means we don't have to prove that nothing else is possible. We don't have to prove that this is the only thing that could have happened. If you know in your mind and you're comfortable with that, then the standard is then beyond a reasonable doubt. The definition of a reasonable doubt is then a doubt based on a reason and common sense after careful and impartial considerations of all evidence. Basically, what that means is if you feel in your mind, you know something, that's it. It's not an impossible standard, like we said in the opening. It's the standard by which people are convicted every single day, from a traffic ticket all the way up to capital M. It's the exact same standard. Now here, you should consider and weigh all the evidence. And I want to back up just a little bit. You are permitted to draw inferences. You don't check your common sense at the metal detector whenever you come in, right? You can still use your common sense and use your common knowledge in interpreting all the evidence that we put in front of y'all. Now, we've gone through, and one of the other things that I find is a little bit complicated in counts 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. And there is aiding and abetting, which means that Desnique Herndon could be responsible for these crimes if some person he associated with that group of people. He purposefully participated in the criminal venture, and then he sought by actions to make sure that it was successful. He did all those things. There's no doubt whatsoever that he did all of those things. Now, the other thing that I find a little bit complicated is that Within count one is a special issue because minor victim one was under 14 years old. Now, here are the elements. We move to kind of the meat here. There's that whole menu that the defendant knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, obtained, maintained, advertised, patronized, or solicited a minor victim. Des Herndon did every single one of those things multiple times with each victim. Now, the other element is that he committed such acts knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact that the person had not attained the age of 18 or he had a reasonable opportunity to view them. That is your big question here. There's no question that Des Herndon advertised these girls, recruited these girls, put them up in hotels and put them on actual websites, knowing that they would be involved in actual commercial X trades. But the big question then is whether or not he had an opportunity to see them. And there was some very much testimony about how much time he had spent with these girls. Each girl got on the stand, not wanting to tell y'all their story, and said that Desnique Herndon had told them over and over again, if someone asked you your age, lie. He told them and he recruited them on Facebook. I know who you are. I've seen your pictures. I don't care. Do you want to make some money? This is the actual snapshot from the instructions that you have in front of you. This literally goes through, asks you, lays out what is required for us to prove commercial sex trafficking of children. This is a bullet point of every single thing that Des Herndon did. Going through the second part, every single time that Des Herndon went to the Days Inn, every single time that Des Herndon went to a hotel or got on Facebook or picked up his phone for that matter, it was for one purpose and one purpose only. It was to put little girls in a hotel room so that he could charge money for people to come and have sex with them. That entire menu is that what Des Herndon did day in and day out as a job. Again, the crux of the argument is not whether or not he did it. There's no doubt whatsoever that Des Herndon is a pimp. By his own admission, he engaged in the commercial sex trafficking. The question is then whether or not he knew they were underage. That's the only question set before y'all in the elements. Now, he knew. My position is that he knew. The second part of these elements, if you don't believe that he knew, he acted in a reckless disregard. The fact that that trafficked person was under 18 years old. There's also a caveat here that within those two contexts, if he had a reasonable opportunity to observe the person upon which he was selling, then we don't have to prove whether or not he knew or recklessly disregarded. Basically, the law is if you spend enough time with someone, you should know. And look at that. That's a key thing. Look at it say, they said the law is basically if you spend enough time with someone, you should know though, right? That kind of makes sense. So you know how you trying to say, I don't know? Look at the law, though. Somebody done tried that back in Benjamin Banneker days. They like, nah, we ain't doing that with you, Benjamin. Stop. Every Benjamin after you gonna be done. Look, they say, and the government is then taken away from their burden of proving actual knowledge because you spent enough time with somebody to know that she is a child. The age did not matter to Des Herndon. Each and every victim that y'all heard from proved up that they were all children. Every single one of them was under 18 years old, and he did not care. And the last caveat then is interstate commerce. You know what I'm saying? This is why we go into some of these cases as well. They involve some of the same things along the lines of the Diddy trial, the Diddy case, and things like that. So we are going to be going into this. We are going to be still shedding awareness on the RICOs, on the traffickings, on these certain kinds of things and other cases as well. And I got a lot of things in the bag, cats, dogs, whatever you think is in the bags. I'm not going to let them out. But we will be building And hopefully a lot of y'all can actually do it with me too, man, because this is what it's all about, us connecting in real time, you know what I mean, and building with each other and creating content and doing great things. It ain't even just about the content, you know what I mean? Imagine that we meet each other from here, you know what I mean, and we impact each other's lives. That's deep. To me, that's deep. So we always got that chance. So salute to everybody on Go. Salute to the whole Go gang. Make sure y'all all dropping likes right now. I can't see nothing because I'm looking at the screen. And I told y'all, see, listen, I ain't tell y'all, because I've been saying this when I used to do my reads. Anytime I'm reading, y'all have to just George Bush the button, likes, because I dropped out of school. I taught myself, you see how well I'm reading? I taught myself this shit. I dropped out of school. I learned how to read from the Reading Rainbow. I can do anything. Yes, Reading Rainbow, homie. Reading Rainbow. Swear, my mother always do. All day she ain't call me, all day. But somehow, some way, when I'm live, she does. Shout out to my moms. Telling you, I was looking forward to it. So now the last caveat then is, let me come back to the screen and see what's going on. All right, cool. We in the chat, we good. Everybody good. So we're gonna get into this RICO, right? Boom. And we got other things that we're gonna get into. So let's just try to read a little bit more before we can talk. So boom, right? The last caveat then is interstate commerce. Whether or not Des Herndon affected interstate commerce, there is no doubt there. He used the phone, he used the internet, he used the hotels, and that affected interstate commerce under the law. Damn, wait, he used the phone, he used the internet, and he used the hotels, and that affected interstate commerce under the law. He used Facebook, and he used the website of Skip the Games. This is the website that this guy was using. The website of Skip the Games has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to facilitate the commercial sex trafficking of children. Okay, now you move on then to the conspiracy. We've got aiding and abetting, which is very similar. So conspirator then is that Des is the head of the snake. Des Herndon and his other friends conspired and agreed with each other, and they knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported those girls. They went through the same menu as kind of a loose organization. That's why it's its own charge, a little bit separate than aiding and abetting. There's another problem. If Des was not involved in the agreement, then he benefited financially from that agreement and from that participation. The interview that he did with Special Agent Williams showed you that day in the day, they showed you that day in and day out, his only source of income was the commercial sex trafficking of those little girls. He had no other job. He had no other source of money. Every cent he spent was off the backs of those little girls. Goes to the manner and means. However, you then define conspiracy, it's the same menu as the other stuff. One last thing, though, I want to highlight is that each different count is its own crime, so that when you go through the verdict form, it's going to have different boxes, and each separate crime is its each deliberation. You go through and you start at count one. And if you think that count one is guilty, then you move to minor victim one, her age, and then you go on all the way down. The evidence has proven that this is the proper way for the jury form to look, because the evidence has shown beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed the sex trafficking of these children. Now, sex trafficking of children is such a code and legal term for what we've heard this week. We've heard about the tuition of people who haven't yet graduated high school. Des Herndon saw a girl that was too young to drive, and he promised her a life that was simply better than 8 children in a 2-bedroom house. Des Herndon took that girl and others like her who had not yet finished high school, and he put them into cold and impersonal hotel rooms. He found a girl with an abusive mother who punched her in the face the second she walked back in and stole her cell phone. He made those girls wait all day, every day, for the knock at the door that represented a stranger to come in and take off their clothes and put them on the bed and rent out their bodies. When he saw those girls and he looked at their social medias and he looked at their faces and he talked to them, he made no mistake. He made a knowing disregard. He knew they were under 18. And you know that because he told them, if someone asks you how old you are, tell them 22. When we heard MV, minor victim, 5 was still a virgin. Jesus, Lord. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. He didn't say, woo, how old are you? He didn't say, that's weird. Where are you from? What's your history? He then got on the internet, updated her ad, and put her down as fresh bait. This is crazy. This is crazy, bro. Heart goes out to these girls, man. It's crazy. Heart goes out to these girls, man. It's right. They told you that they all saw him. Every single girl got on the witness stand and told y'all a painful and disgusting story of going through and meeting Des Herndon and being kept in those hotel rooms and spending time and time and time again with him. In fact, when he was in the special, but when he was with, they say in with, when he was in with Special Agent Williams, one of the things that I found the most telling was a little bit of an offhanded comment. He said, maybe there's minors. Maybe there's minors. Maybe they're not. If you want a definition of reckless disregard, then that's it right there. But I think he actually knew. I think that Des Herndon knew because he sought out the most vulnerable girls that he could. He tried to find someone he could control, he could influence, and he could promise the world to, and they had no mental or emotional capacity to think otherwise. And not only did he do that to these girls, he then taught others how to do it. Because when you hear the story of Malcolm Roberts telling that girl that he was in love with her and she's 13 and driving hours and hours to go pick her up, that is a graduate from Des Herndon's School of Pimping. In the opening, Mr. Mims said that it's not a movie, it's not a kidnapping, it's not a tuition, it's just tuition. And again, on Cross, he said, when someone puts themselves in a situation, referring to Des, that maybe they won't have a reasonable opportunity to view these girls. Des Herndon took those girls, stuffed them into a hotel room and abused them. And it wasn't himself that was abusing them. If that's not bad enough, he charged rent for their bodies. That was his entire job. And the way to make more money, the way to have new bait on the internet is to disregard those girls' ages. You heard from minor victim 5. I'm sorry, minor victim 1, 2, 3, and 5, 6, and 8. And they all said that Des or people he directed, recognized them, and had the opportunity to view them, taking that into the definition that Mr. Mims gave, that it was just tuition. Tuition is also taking a child who does not have the emotional or mental capacity to make her own choices, who doesn't have anybody else in the world to call on a cell phone that he kept making a big deal about, and she has no one to look for support, and he charges men to grape them, money to grape them. The only appropriate answer to Mr. Herndon then is guilty on every single count of that indictment. Thank you very much. The defense may now present its closing arguments. Attorney Mims. Ladies and gentlemen, look at the court. Cool, we rocking? We rocking. Salute to everybody in the chat. Chill. Let's see what they said. Remember, this man got 7 life sentences, right? I still gonna go back and we're gonna go through this case. I'm gonna go through certain victims. I'm gonna pick certain things out this case. I got another case that is another thing that I got in my mind. I wanted to do the other case first and then this one. But you know what I mean? This one just struck me in a different way. The other one involves a young girl as well, but it involves like this man and how he's used his girlfriend. And his girlfriend was the girl that kind of befriended the young girl. And then they end up putting the girl in a hotel. Like, it's a sad story. It's most definitely a sad story, but we got to bring awareness to these types of things. All right. Because this is what it's all about. All right. What we don't know will always be used against us. So we got to bring the awareness, regardless of what kind of content I'm going to do. You know, I joke, I do comedy, I do a bunch of things, but don't get it twisted. Okay. You go down my channel, you see what it's about. We most definitely try and help some minds out here. Right. So boom. So he said, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I thank you for your service. It's 7 days now you've been up here doing this one way or the other. And during this time, you have heard some bad testimony and some emotional testimony. Mr. Giral here has just called for your emotions to be involved in this. And I know you're going to do that. But if you read that jury charge, this is your emotions have to be out of it. What Mr. Giral has called for you to use your emotions and make decisions in this case. Now, that is not what you're required to do. It is not what the court's jury's charge says. This is not about your emotions. So I'm asking you to set those aside, at least for this particular part of the case. Judge the evidence on whether or not the case has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's just tuition. It's SEX. The trafficking of SEX is tuition. It's not just tuition. You've got minors involved here. I've never said that. Remember, the other guy was just saying it's about him. He said, I've never said that. That's not what we're advocating. We are asking you to decide, judge this case, whether or not they have proved beyond a reasonable doubt based on that definition that you believe it unanimously, each and every one of you, that if you believe that they proved this case and you can go home and sleep with that verdict, then that would be your verdict. But it should not be based upon your emotions, and certainly not what Brian Giral or Bobby Mims say, because the judge will instruct you if he hasn't already done it. And here, what we say is not any evidence at all. All we're trying to do is trying to point out our points that we want you to consider and the evidence that you've heard. And you should do that with a critical eye. It says that right there in the jury charge. Now, what you got here, we'll go through these one at a time. You've got some inconsistent statements. MV, that's minor victim if you just joined us. MV1, this is all minor victims. I don't know what the defense think they're about to do. So let's see. You know what I mean? Minors, bro. People got kids up there in them jury. They're like, man, we ain't playing with you, bro. I'm about to rock you. The littler girl that they brought in from Abilene, that wasn't done by Desnique Herndon. Would you call up government's 46, please? And right after government 112. There was testimony, in fact, earlier, that ad that was posted for MV1, Little Jasmine, was given to someone blank by Des Herndon. That's not true. It was a template that he gave to him for another reason. Didn't have anything to do with the little girl. They went out and they got her on July 22nd. Could you pull up 46, please? If you look at 46, you can read it there. If you can expand it a little bit, just look at some of the verbiage in there. That's the template. The template is something that you can use if you want to have SEX. You can put it up on Skip the Games. You can use this template. This has nothing to do with number 112. Pull up 112, please. Thank you. This is the one that was posted for Jasmine by Malcolm Roberts. This was posted by Malcolm Roberts on, I believe it was July 22nd or 27th. Herndon had already left the hotel out there, and he left on the 24th. We know that from the evidence that was presented. That's all. Thank you. That's the point of that. That ad was not the same template that Herndon was supposed to have given to Roberts. Now, Herndon didn't have a thing to do with minor victim one at all. Roberts and Tavares Watkins got in the car after Roberts had romanced the girl on social media, went out and picked her up. I think the evidence was that she slipped off from her parent, went to a friend's house, and then met those guys at some place out there, and they brought her back. They did that. He didn't do that. I'm talking about Herndon here. Now, the only time that minor victim one had anything to do with and talk to Des Herndon was that one meeting in the hotel room when they were all there, when they were all out there smoking trees, and she saw Herndon for, let me see, and she saw Herndon for what she says about an hour. We're gonna take off that. Now, Brian Gerald just said you should have enough time to observe. That way, you would consciously disregard it, or you had adequate opportunity to observe. But at the same time, he just argued that you should have adequate opportunity if you'd been around her. Well, that wasn't enough time for him to observe. And the next time that she saw Des Herndon was right here in this very courtroom 2 years later. Now, he doesn't look any different. Can you call up, what is that? What is his mugshot? 108 or something like that? 308? Anyway, I'm going to ask you to look at his mugshot and look at him. He hasn't changed. He looks no different. And we also know from Agent Williams' testimony that at the photo lineup, MV1 or MV, there's just MV, no one, MV, they've been talking about one, MV could not identify him. Des Herndon, and she identified Tavares Watkins. She identified Malcolm Roberts. You know why? Because they are the ones that did it, not him. So he's not guilty of that one being count one. Minor victim two, her, and minor victim three, Macy, they were caught over there by Athens police or by the deputy sheriff somewhere in Henderson County with another man who apparently was a John. Now, we don't know where that came from. I don't think there's been any evidence admitted that, but you heard it. But what were they doing though? They had $2,000 between them, and it looks as if they were out there at least with a John. As I recall, the testimony was a guy named Leo, and no evidence that Herndon had anything to do with that I recall. But you heard the evidence they had 2,000 in their possession. So what were they doing? Little Macy's running around with MV1, minor victim two. That's Emily. Now, we have some evidence here, and I believe that Emily had posted skip to the game ads for Macy. Macy was sort of along for the ride, and boy, did she have a ride. But what does that show us? No, you said, but what that does show is that now we know that Malcolm Roberts posted for the skip the games on MV1. We also know that MV2 posted skip the games for MV3, tried to SEX traffic them, and we don't know what they were doing when they were caught with the 39-year-old man. So MV4, minor victim 4, we don't have much on her because that case, that counsel was dismissed. MV5, that's another Jasmine. MV5 was sort of, I guess, a friend or an associate of Chyna. That's MV8. That's minor victim number 8. And we also know that during that time, Chyna and minor victim 8 was posting on Skip to the Games too, not only for herself, but for minor victim 5 as well. Why is that important? It goes to show that if you had the access to the number one, the internet, but also those Skip the Games ads, you could post as well. There was not any particular, doesn't seem to be any particular limit on who will get the post on Skips the Game. And it looks like as if everybody was posting. Now, MV6, Alyssa, not Alicia, but Alyssa. MV6, she was already being trafficked by a guy named Kadarius Davis, I believe it was. They called him CeeLo. And so she was already being trafficked over there. Now, with respect to Chyna, we didn't get to hear from her because she didn't want to come to court. I don't know what that says about the state of the case or the government's case at all. But what it did was it let you see her statement that she gave to blank up in Oklahoma to Agent Williams. Now, we also know that she didn't want to come to court for some reason. One, you can speculate, I can, or you can draw your own conclusions. We know that she made, at least her mother testified that she made a false statement to Agent Williams when she was making those statements up in Oklahoma. So if she did make a false statement, that's a federal offense. She could be subject to prosecution there. Now, if I were her lawyer, I'd tell her to take the Fifth Amendment, but she didn't show up to even do that. So Alicia, MV8, knew how to post on Skip the Games and did do it. Now, with respect to this so-called conspiracy, if it was a conspiracy, then it was a pretty loose one out there. And this seemed like we had girls posting for themselves, some sex traffickers posting for girls, all kinds of people posting either for themselves or others. And so that's conspiracy. It seems more like a way of life. Seems to me like it's a bunch of friends and it's a way of life and a way to make some money. And in fact, Carly Lockmiller, who Mr. Giral is prosecuting in state court, by the way, came over here and testified basically that she's broke. She makes more money doing that than she does at the gas station. And that's the truth, because you can make more money doing that business in Tucson than you can make in minimum wage jobs. Now, as far as emotion goes, I don't want there to be any emotions in your decisions in this. But I think it is all of this a clarion call to all of those who are parents and the parents of these little girls. Take a little bit more care in what your kids are doing, what they are doing online. And we talk about online and internet, all of this stuff that you get on the internet, their evidence, it's internet. Who thinks that everybody all the information that they get off the internet is true? It's easy to hack it. It's easy to impersonate. If you've been on the internet, how many times have you gotten one of these ads that say you've got 3 million, 10 million waiting on you, give us your bank information? You get these lately. You get these things that say, okay, you just bought an iPhone for $1,500, send us your information. That's the kind of stuff. There's all sort of things that goes on the internet. And yet we're supposed to rely upon what the government says that came off the internet. Now, it may be good evidence. Maybe it is. It's up to you to decide that. Rihanna, Carly, and Chyna, Agent Williams says none of them seem to be bitter against Herndon. Not really any evidence that he's ever abused, coerced any of these girls. And they come and go as they want. They all had phones. If I may say, agents over here shaking his head. If I state something that's not according to the evidence, you recall the evidence, not what I say. But that's my interpretation of the evidence. I'm just calling on you to take a look at it. You have to, in making these tough decisions, you're required to follow your oath. And your oath is to render a true and correct verdict based upon the evidence. And I'm sure that you will do that. All right. This is my call to you and your duty. It is my call to you to remind yourselves that what we do in these courts and what these prosecutors do and what defense lawyers do is protect the innocent. Okay. Protect the innocent. I'm not talking about these people. I'm talking about the rest of us in the courtroom and out here in the public, to make the government prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Even if somebody is guilty, they still have to prove it. The jury may believe someone's guilty. They may actually know someone's guilty. But if they haven't got the evidence that they all believe, from that witness stand and the evidence that's been admitted, it's not proof. So that's what this is about. It's to make sure that the government's case is solid. I told you whenever we started this in voir dire, how you say that again? Voir dire? Is it voir dire? It's voir dire, right? Voir dire. I think it's voir dire. If I'm not mistaken, it's voir dire, right? Boom, right? Herndon's not on trial. Their case is on trial, and this is what this is about. Now, why is that important? There's one institution that I submit is the most important for democracy. Certainly, we have the right to vote. And oh, man, this is a lot of fluff. What are you talking about? What are y'all talking about? What are y'all talking about, bro? Get to the thing. What? Talking about votes and no, bro. They was like this. It was in them jury people was in there like this. Okay, what you gonna say? Democracy. We have the right to vote and all of that. It's the jury. Where you're sitting right now, the jury system is the base station of democracy, where we bring citizens in here to judge the government's case. Now, you may think the government's case is airtight. I'd submit there's reasonable doubt, and this is what I'm supposed to do. A verdict of not guilty does not mean someone is innocent. It means that it's not proven. And with the inconsistencies, the way the stories are changed, the way the girls have been talked to several times, they come in all of a sudden from the time when they started, at least from some of the interviews we know about, they've denied everything, and then they're certain about everything. So there's inconsistency. So they're saying that they came in there and was denying everything from the very beginning. But now, since they went and was talking with the government several times, because the government preps the witnesses before they go on. So they're saying now that they done prep these people several times or so. So now they coming and saying yay to stuff. But this is something that's the inconsistency, because it has evolved. Page 24 made a note here. Page 24, judge is going to tell you in a jury instruction number 22, the verdict must be unanimous. You decide the case yourself. Says, do not give up your honest belief just to get a verdict. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Each one of you is the judge. Every one of you has to have the verdict. Every one of you has to have the verdict. It's your verdict. It's not a committee. It's not, you're not. Your job is not to get a verdict. Your job is to get your own verdict and stand by after you've done your deliberations. In summary, I want you to find him not guilty of MV1 for sure. Not guilty of that. Only thing he had to do with Jasmine MV1 at all was that time when she went into the room where they were smoking trees, and in this courtroom today, no other evidence that he had anything to do with her. That ad, that template does not coordinate with Mr. Herndon that he did. That's on the first count. Finally, this is where I call you all over the world. We have our military men. What the hell is it? Military men. Yo, bro, this is some fluff. If I'm sitting in a court and this man talking like this, bro, first of all, I got 8 victims here. You only seem like you only really certain about one. That's Jasmine. Like, what happened? Got 8 victims here, bro. This man ain't do nothing. You're supposed to be all right. The defense is the prosecution, bro. Like, think about it, right? Crazy. Hold up, man. We got to get up for this. This veteran thing got me there. Mr. Locker is a veteran. I'm a veteran too. And I'm sure there's veterans in here that serve their country. But what you're doing today is to hold the government to their burden, and serving with your community is just as valuable as anything that you do in the military. This is the highest calling. And I'm asking you to return your verdicts of not guilty on all of these, and certainly on MV1. Thank you very much. Attorney Lockett, yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, the counsel, and the ladies and the gentlemen of the jury. I think you got to be sitting there thinking, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How does this kind of conduct still exists in civil society. How can humans be permitted to treat each other in this way? How is this possible? How do we live in a world where this still happens? And if you're just listening to this argument thinking, I don't get it, this doesn't make any sense, that's the right response. That's the right response. That's the right response. That doesn't make any sense. And we have to ignore an awful lot of evidence along the way, just tripping right past it. There was a mountain of evidence in this case. And for him to say that this is just a way of life, this is not a conspiracy, it's a way of life. Well, guess what? That way of life makes a conspiracy. If you join with other people to earn your living together by selling kids for sex, that's a conspiracy to commit sex trafficking to children, and that's count 7. Okay. There were a couple of misstatements of the facts and the evidence, and we need to go over them because they're pretty important. Can you pull up page 85 of the government's 226? Mr. Mims just told you that there was no evidence that the defendant participated in any way in the sale of minor victim 1. That is absolutely not true. He said during the interview that he sold that ad to Malcolm Roberts. He didn't just give it to him. He sold it to him in exchange for proceeds from the commercial sex acts of minor victim 1. So if we can go to page 85 of this exhibit and then zoom in on the middle of the page, what I mean, basically 50-50. It's basically like he just paid me for the little things. That's the ad that he'd just shown me a while ago. Oh, he paid you? Started to show him the other girls how to make the ads. Yeah, he didn't pay me cause blank. Yeah, and if we could continue down, so Malcolm didn't know how to make an ad, he just paid you. And what does 50-50 mean? Split. So that's how expensive it is to learn that, basically. Yeah. So he's charging him 50% of his proceeds for Jasmine, minor victim 1, for selling him that ad. We have a mountain of evidence in this case. And yet Mr. Mims wants to characterize this as something maybe is just made up on the internet. Well, that would be awfully convenient if it was true, except the defendant admitted by his own words that those accounts were his, that he posted these girls, that he advertised them, and that he sold them for sex. The only thing he doesn't admit to is knowing how old they are. And guess what? That's not required. You've been instructed on law. Okay. He doesn't have to know how old they were. He can act with reckless disregard as to their age, or he can simply see them and have a reasonable opportunity to observe them. Will you pull up the PowerPoint? So there's a mountain of evidence in this case, and it tells of a familiar pattern of victims being recruited on social media and promised lots of money, picked up, romance, placed in hotel rooms, and then bait and switched. And then the bait and switch, all of this, you're going to earn lots of money, or we'll make so much money together. And then they're sold for sex, and they barely receive any of the proceeds. He poses as John's in the text conversations, and he picks up the proceeds after they left, supplies them with condoms, pays for the hotel rooms, pays the victims very little, and certainly not what they believed they were going to make, and scared them, left emotional wreckage in each of their lives. So this chart, and I'd ask you to take a look at it when you're back in the jury room. This is the government's 310. This will go back with you to the jury room. It lays out all the critical facts of this case. And we're going to talk about why you're not considering minor victim 4 and how that's different from, in particular, minor victim 8. We don't know where minor victim 4 is, and that's a tragedy in this case, but it also demonstrates that we understand our burden and we are not going to take the risk of overreaching when you haven't heard from her. So now, minor victim 8, it's true, she didn't come into this courtroom, but you did hear from her. You did hear her story. You heard an hour and then half interview with her where she described all of this conduct. In addition to that, during his interview, the defendant admitted to receiving proceeds from commercial sex act of minor victim 8 the day before he was arrested. He admitted that some of the money that he had was money that he had received from minor victim 8 from Alyssa, because he said it's not Alicia, it's Alyssa, right? Alyssa. So this is the key language in this charge. And I want you to look at these 10 things. It's really 11 because you have your list of 10. And then just below that, you have or benefiting financially from a venture that does one of those 10 things. Here's the thing that you need to understand. Although the defendant did many of these things with each of these girls, he did at least one of these things with all of these girls, and that is what is required. You don't have to find that he did all 10 with each girl. You only have to find that he did one of these things or benefited financially from a venture that did one of these things for each of the minor victims. So you may find harboring or transporting or advertising. There's an awful lot that in this case for one of the minor victims, but don't have to find the other 9. Or you can find that he benefited financially from a venture that did these things. And that is sufficient in this case. Or look at the underlying language on the slide, or aided and abetted another who did these things. So as you analyze these counts, ask yourself and go back to this list of 10 things. Did he do one of these 10 things? Or did he benefit financially from a group that did one of these 10 things? And then we keep coming back to this. But this idea somehow that, well, I didn't know how old they were. And that's really the only defense he offered during this whole interview. In 3.5 hours, what does he say? Yeah, I did this. Yeah, I'm a pimp. Yeah, I put these ads up. You know, they posted some of their own, and we're not disagreeing with that. But he also directed them to do that, and he benefited financially from them. The question then is, was he aware of their age? Because that's the only element that he denies in this. Oh, I didn't know. I mean, they say they're 18. I see them someplace else. They hang out with adults. I know to be over 18, that means they must be 18, right? The law says no. The law says you take that risk. You take that risk on yourself when you choose to sex traffic another person. If you happen to be wrong about their age, even if they lied to you, you're still responsible. So let's walk through this count by count. And minor victim 1, count 1 is admittedly, it is a little different because minor victim 1 was primarily trafficked by Malcolm Roberts and Pat Cross. We agreed with that, with the defense on that. Then they were primarily responsible, but guess what? The defendant benefited financially from her. We just saw that. You just saw him saying that he made Malcolm Roberts break him off 50-50 for selling that ad. And it was in reference to minor victim 1. Despite what Mr. Mims told you, you just saw it with your own eye on screen because that came from the defendant's own mouth. What I mean, basically 50-50, you just saw those words. Somebody paid. That's when he gave you the money. So he got the child support card. They said something like unemployment benefits because they didn't know exactly what it was for. And I guess he got like 500 or something, 400 or 500, and he gave me some money too. This is the talking about Malcolm Roberts giving Jasmine minor victim 1's child support card that was in the back of her mom's phone to them. And he got paid for it. That's part of his payment for the ad. She's 13 years old at the time. So in addition to benefiting financially from that venture, you also know that he aided and abetted Malcolm Roberts and Pat Cross, sent him to draft that ad. He sent him that draft ad. He sent him the ad, the draft, the template. Even if it wasn't used by Malcolm, it doesn't matter because it gave Malcolm an opportunity to see what an ad published by a successful pimp looks like. That's a mentoring process. And Desnique Herndon expected to get paid, and he did get paid for it. It's crazy. But you see how the defense came and just try to like glaze over it and kind of like basically like gloss over all the stuff that, you know what I mean? They're like, so they came back. The prosecution came back swinging. I ain't gonna hold you. They're like, what? What are you talking about, bro? You bugging. What are you talking about? So yeah, the prosecution came back swinging on this one. It was like, nah, they wasn't going. Prosecution was not going on this one. It was like, nah, homie, we ain't going. We ain't going. Straight. Hold on, let me just finish up this little thing, right? Hold on, wait, come on. Now y'all getting up. What's going on? What's going on? Hold on, there you go. Let me go back and screen share it again. Hold on. Because it was just blank. 17, boom, right? Yeah, we did right. Bang. All right, cool. Now you heard from Jasmine, and she said that's the same person. And yes, it's true. She had a hard time picking him out, and she couldn't pick him out of the lineup on prior occasions. It's different being in the same room as someone. But in addition to that, the defendant said the first time I saw her, when he was asked about it by Special Agent Williams, when he was interviewed on the day he was arrested, the defendant said he saw her. Moving on to victim number 2, she was 16 years old. So of that list, 10, what do we have? He recruited. I invite you, if you have your notepad, write down Exhibit 44. When you get back to the room, you're going to have these exhibits. Go back and look at Exhibit 44. That's a Facebook conversation between the defendant and Emily, minor victim 2, where he's recruiting her or asking her to come and work for him. And then he's advertising Emily. Take a look at Exhibit 108. And the defendant confessed that he posted her ads. So we have recruiting and advertising, and he also transported. And the fact that the defendant wasn't driving doesn't matter for the fact because he's in the car and he's clearly directing that conduct. So the law recognizes that what we can accomplish by our own acts, we can also accomplish by the acts of another if we direct and instruct that person. So he is there in the car. They're clearly there to pick up Emily and Macy at his instructions. So he's transporting them even if he's in the passenger seat. He maintained Emily because he rented a hotel room where she could be sold for commercial sex, and he benefited financially. And he told Special Agent Williams, and you saw him say it, he confessed that he received 50% of the proceeds. Of course, Emily said it was all the proceeds, but the difference between that doesn't matter. The truth is he got at least some, and that's benefiting financially. And there's zero doubt here as to whether or not he had the opportunity to observe Emily. He acknowledged that he had a business arrangement with her, and he identified her picture. Moving on to Macy, so he advertised Macy again. This is Exhibit 109. She told you that she didn't post that. She told you the defendant posted that. And that? Cool. And you know what? The defendant said otherwise. The defendant said, I had no business arrangement. I had no dealings with Macy. You know what? You don't have to take his word for it. You heard from Macy herself. She spoke to you. She told you he got the proceeds. He also maintained Macy in the same way that he maintained Emily, and he transported Macy in the same way he transported Emily. He clearly had the opportunity to observe her. He didn't deny that he knew her. He just happened to claim that his business arrangement was with Emily and he identified her picture. So moving on to minor victim 5, she was 15 to 17 years old at the time. That was when she was trafficked. So he advertised Jasmine. She told you that. Look at the government's Exhibit 111. He benefited financially from Jasmine. She told you that as well. You heard from her. She said that. She said that he got the proceeds. And he maintained Jasmine by renting a hotel room, which she would be sold for commercial sex, and provided her with condoms. That is maintaining. And he also did that for minor victims 2s and 3s. So providing condoms is a way of maintaining. So that meets one of those lists of 10 possible from the menu of ways that someone can be trafficked. He also transported Jasmine. You heard her say that he picked her up at her house in Longview and he put her in a hotel. And again, it doesn't matter whether or not he was the driver or simply instructing a driver. There is no doubt that he had a reasonable opportunity to observe her, and he didn't deny it. He admitted that he sought her out for sex, and he identified her picture. He sold her virginity to a John so he could get out of jail. Crazy. It's crazy. Alyssa, he advertised Alyssa. See Government's Exhibit 112. Take a look at it and recall her testimony. Alyssa told you that he also benefited financially from her body being sold. She told you that he got all the proceeds. The defendant, again, he says, oh, I didn't mess with her. She was trafficked by someone else. Once I learned her age at the 12 Oaks Motel incident, I stopped messing with her. What does stop messing with her mean? It means I was messing with her before. I just don't want to admit that. Again, you don't have to take his word for it. You could see the gears turning as he's being interviewed. He realizes he's in trouble. So how do I craft a story that might be believable enough to get me out of this? You don't have to take his word for it. So conversely, ask yourself, what did Alyssa have to gain from saying those things? She's ashamed to come in here and tell people all these things. All these girls were. What's her bias? None. What's the defendant stand to gain? Everything. So who are you going to believe when it comes to who got those proceeds? He also transported Alyssa. She told you that. And again. This is not in doubt. He knows who she is. He admitted he trafficked her. He said, oh, I stopped messing with her. That was the first time. The 12 Oaks Motel thing was the first time. And guess what? The police happened to stop right before the first actual commercial sex act. And are you kidding me? That's so preposterous. You don't have to believe that. Alyssa told you otherwise. Minor victim 8. And because the defendant's own conduct in dissuading her from testifying, which you can interpret to mean you heard the words on that call, if you don't show up, they got to drop my case. Well, that's what I'm going to do. Well, what's the inversion of that? If you do show up, I'm sunk. Your testimony would hurt me because I'm guilty of the conduct against you if you testified about it. So you can interpret that to mean an admission of guilt, showing misconsciousness of guilt regarding Alyssa. We know that he advertised her. He was advertising her on the day that he got arrested. So we have 2 different exhibits from the 2 main periods that we are talking about. The time when he was in jail directing Kendrick Thacker and his mom to help put her at a hotel, because that's back in June and July 2020. That's Exhibit 113. And then Exhibit 114 is from the time that he was arrested. We know that he benefited financially because you heard it from her, or you heard it from her own words in her interview in Oklahoma. You also have heard the defendant say, yeah, I got her money from her, like 200, 250 from her yesterday for commercial sex acts. He also maintained her. He sent Rihanna Cooks up to Tyler to put money on the hotel room to keep her in that hotel room where she was recovered on that day, on the day that the defendant was arrested. She was recovered that day. He provided her with condoms also. There's no question that he had a chance and reasonable opportunity to observe minor victim A. Not at all. He didn't deny that he knew her. I mean, he treats her like a girlfriend, ex-girlfriend that depended on whether or not he was trying to keep her away from Dio. You heard that in his own statement. And uniquely, Alyssa, he used force, fraud, and coercion to keep her working. He choked her, pulled her down by her hair, and smashed her phone when she tried to leave. And he also coerced her into taking D-rugs to keep her awake so she could work. So that's the substantive counts. Now let's talk about the conspiracy. I'm just going to put up 4 conspirators in this case. That's not to say that they're the only ones, but they're the ones that you can just latch on to really easily, because I'm sure there's a lot of testimony, but I have no doubt that you're going to remember this testimony. Tavarius Watkins, Exhibit 48. That's a series of Facebook communications where they are talking about, hey, did you get the hotel rooms, or do I need to get the hotel rooms? And then they're discussing about, hey, if we use this hotel, we've got to send the Johns through the side door. Why are they doing that? It's to avoid detection from the hotel staff. So you know he's working with Tavarius Watkins to achieve that common end. Malcolm Roberts, we have heard lots about him mentoring Malcolm Roberts. He stated that he helped Malcolm Roberts get his start, and in regards to Jasmine, minor victim 1, and we also know that he received proceeds from minor victim 1, and that's the 50-50 comment. And we also heard from multiple girls that Malcolm drove them on out calls at Desi's requests. Pat Frost's involvement was primarily with minor victim 1, but he also drove the girls to out calls for Des, as you heard the girls say, and he helped traffic minor victim 1. Kendrick Thacker, key role in this conspiracy occurred while the defendant was in jail in the summer of 2020. He used Thacker to run his business. He instructed Thacker. Thacker does his bidding, and they get minor victim 5, Jasmine, and minor victim 8, Sheena, Alyssa, into hotels so that he can earn money on his bond. Again, the defendant gave Thacker step-by-step instructions, and guess what? That's what Thacker did. So you're going to take this chart back, and I'll just encourage you to look at it again. There's a couple of key numbers here. Do you recall this number here? How many ads have been posted to the defendant's accounts? Over 3,500. Damn, that's crazy. Over 3,500 ads. If you will recall, back on Tuesday of last week, I asked the panel during jury selection, I said, is anyone here in favor of making prostitution legal? And no one raised their hand. I suspect as you sat here and you listened to the testimony for a week now, I suspect this trial has significantly reinforced that view, because you have seen how even if you took the question away, is anyone here in favor of legalizing tuition for adults? Even if you raised the age, I still think that this trial would strengthen your view on that issue, because you've seen the kind of wreckage that it runs for these people's lives. You've seen the emotional hurt. You've seen the trauma that it causes. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is the most important things that civil societies can do? Is to protect our young. And sometimes they need to be protected from people like Des Herndon, who preys on their insecurities, their poverties, their need for companionship, their lack of adult guidance, and he then manipulates them into believing that he's the one that can fulfill all those needs. No matter what you think of these girls, poor choices. They didn't deserve this. Nothing could justify them being treated like chattel, like property that is sold, selling their bodies, selling their virginities in one instance, selling their childhood, advertising them as fresh bait. Imagine the depravity required to turn innocence into mere marketing, selling their dignity, and all without remorse, just business. You saw him in his confession, just business, no remorse. Trying to lower his charges. What can I do to help myself? No concern for these girls' well-being. What can I do to get a better deal? How can I help myself out? Where did all that money go? Where did all their money go? Do you really think he was using it to set up retirement accounts for these girls? Hardly. He was blowing it all on frivolous living on himself, showing exactly how much regard he has for their well-being. Read back through those messages with the other traffickers. That's government exhibits 38 through 46. Read those conversations and remind yourself of the low. And he thinks how low he thinks of these girls. They're just hoes. They're just property. They're just things to be sold. And we can't undo what Des Herndon has done. We cannot undo that. We can't undo the psychological harm he's caused these girls. We cannot undo the damage to their future relationships that he has caused, because the criminal justice system has a limited toolkit, but it has one very powerful tool. And that tool is accountability. You get to tell the defendant and anyone else who may think of going down this path, this is not acceptable in our community. You get to hold the defendant accountable. That is a very powerful thing to do, indeed. And so you are charged by the court to seeing justice get done, and go and do just that. Find the defendant guilty on all counts. I appreciate your attendance. Thanks, sir. Whew, that was a read, bro. That was a read, son. I did it in an hour, though. Cool. Shout out to that. I still got another video that I do want to do. Shout out to everybody who was in the chat with it does. You know what I'm saying? Which is crazy, man. You know what I mean? This guy, Des Herndon. I do want to go back here again one more time just for the road. Let's get this for the road. Where does it do that, man? Let me see. Yeah, man. Des Herndon, bro. It's crazy. Crazy. Let me maximize this. Yeah, man. Salute to everybody in the chat. You already know the vibe. Yeah, man. Youngest victim was 13 years old. It was just a crazy situation, man. This whole thing, man. This whole thing is wild, bro. Straight. This whole situation. Let me see something. The same way a man knows a gender woman from a woman, a man knows the difference between a child and a grown woman. You know the difference between a child and a grown woman. Stop, bro. Kid's a kid, bro. Kid 13 years old. You don't know that person's 13? Man, stop, bro. Stop. You know what I mean? Even when you start to talk to people, you know what I mean? Some people smart and all that, I get it. But when you start talking to people, you just look at a person's face. Some people got hard lives, I get it, man. But that's still a kid, bro. You can know that's a kid. You can pretend to not know. But in your heart, you know, yeah, I'm going with love on that. You know the deal. You know how old the person is, bro. You know what I'm saying? Period, bro. You know what I mean? But these are some of the things that we got to highlight. These are some of the things that we got to talk about. This shit is a lot. This whole thing was a lot. You know what I mean? That's why I wanted to read the closing arguments, right? In a way, how they both pushing before the sentencing, how they both pushing, you know what I mean? Pushing the jury right now. And I see how the prosecution was coming right, but then how the defense was kind of like, you know what I mean? That's the defense's job. But it's like, you really was pushing for minor victim one, really, out of everybody. He was trying to say it wasn't, but you know what I'm saying? And then right after that, back on redirect, back again when the prosecution went back up and they went back to further reinstate all of the things and outdo all of the things that you said. As far as the defense, Mr. Mims, Mr. Jarrell, yeah, man, he did his thing on the prosecution side. on the close. He did this thing on the close, and he really tied the abuse, and he really made that jury think about the victims, think about everything. And like they said, kind of like the jury thing, like with the Diddy trial too, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to find, like he's saying, like, with one thing, 1 out of the 10 things, what do you got to find with these girls, with these people? You know what I'm saying? And if you're guilty of one thing out of the 10, then you're guilty. And we see that he got 7 life sentences. So that goes to show you what they believed and what they didn't believe. You feel me? Straight. Salute to all of y'all, though, man. Salute to all the good people, man. I rocked out on this read. You already know I want y'all always to drop likes on my reads, share these reads as well. You know what I'm saying? Because I told you, I taught myself to read. Reading Rainbow, I can go anywhere. See me going anywhere, homie. Shout out to LeVar Burton. That's the dude from the Star Trek Enterprise. I never knew. Yo, they about to Rico the Enterprise. Yo, bro, I never knew the guy that taught me to read on Reading Rainbow was on the Star Trek Enterprise. When I found that shit, I was young. I said, Mom, ain't this the dude that be teaching me to read? My uncle. Shout out to LeVar Burton for that. But yeah, man, shout out to all my people. Shout out to all my good people in the chat. I got another live that's scheduled after this. I'm just going to set the time to another schedule. Boom. Might go take 2 puffs and come in. I'm going to get it off in like an hour. I'm still going to do this video right now. So I'm going to get this video off before I even do anything else. So I have a live scheduled. But yeah, let me change the number to 9. I'm going to put it on 9. 9, 10, something like that. Let me see. I'm going to change it to 9. People be laughing when I say that shit. They were like, yo, I remember reading Rainbows, huh? Facts, man. Straight, we was in the streets, bro. In the streets my whole life. I'm proud of it, you know. But I taught myself some stuff, you know. I ain't waste time and didn't teach myself some things. Okay, cool. Here. All right, so I'm gonna put 9, 10. I'm gonna do 9, 15. Fuck it. 9, 15. Take 2 pulls of this trace. Yeah. So look, that one is gonna be a dope one though. I'm gonna do it's more reaction. I'm gonna screen share because I really want y'all to hear a lot what Queen was talking about on this. You know what I mean? I like different people's viewpoints. Yeah, I like listening to different people's views. Like even on my channel, I was putting people that didn't like Diddy or people that did like him or whatever the case, or people that was indifferent. Yeah, because I just like the conversations. I like everybody lifting their voice, and that's what it's all about. You feel me? So salute to all of y'all for that. Most definitely. Everybody hit the notification. I want to join me for that conversation. That title of that video is let me tell you now. The title of that video is Diddy Trial Unfiltered Reaction to Cassie, Jane Doe, the Jury, and Puffy. Queen Sheba Darling breakdown and a reaction by Udo and Go. And I think that's going to be a good one. You know what I mean? I look forward to even having Queen Sheba on the channel. Very, very smart woman, very, very brilliant lady. So, yeah, I most definitely look forward to that. You heard? So salute to everybody. Make sure y'all, Udo and Go, make sure y'all hit notifies on that. Make sure y'all sharing, liking, doing all the good things, subscribing on Instagram, subscribing on YouTube, hitting the notification bells on everything. And Cash App, Udo and Go if you want to support the channel. I appreciate all the support of the channel. And you already know the vibes, man. You know the vibes.
All my niggas turn shooters. All my ops turn rats. All my niggas from the Uda. All my niggas turn shooters. All my ops turn rats. All my niggas turn shooters. On the internet, you ain't been a threat. You been stuck in a computer. Show me the proof. All my niggas turn shooters. All my niggas from the Uda. Welcome to the Uda. All my niggas from the Uda. All my niggas turn shooters. All my ops turn rats. All my niggas turn shooters. On the internet, you ain't been a threat. You been stuck in a computer. Show me the proof. All my niggas turn shooters. All my niggas from the Uda. Welcome to the Uda. All of my niggas insane. They tryna catch a mistake. Young niggas putting in pain. It in the game, all for the game. Niggas ain't playing for nothing. Went in school, laying in bang. My little nigga kill my little nigga. Full-time job not to kill niggas. Jump off the porch of the field, nigga. You was in the house, I'm a field nigga. No fuck boys around real niggas. Been a drug dealer since a little nigga, huh? To get a kilo, they'll kill a nigga. Fuck how you feel, nigga. To get some kilos, I'll kill a nigga too. Throw that rock like I'm Montana. Good head, raise my antennas. He 4'9", not San Fran. Beat the box with my bandana. Then I dip set like I'm Santana. I'm in UK like that Montana. She bring me money, you press her. You got a jug and finesse her. I give a dick that'll change your life. You leave her change on the dresser. Shorty a wetty, a wetty. That pussy ready, get ready. Don't wanna get ahead of myself, but I want the head for the Getty. She said she fuck with the Uda. I tell her